Now this is epic. But as awesome as 1980s man is, we're not watching that video today. We're going to be reacting to Liam Thompson's video about using 1980s technology for a week. You guys told me in my other reaction videos that this is a good one where he actually makes an attempt at following the challenge that he gives himself. Who would have guessed that something like that is actually possible? But you guys had positive comments about this, so I'm going to have a little bit of higher expectations based on your recommendations, but I'm still going to try and keep an open mind while adding commentary to this. Now, based on the thumbnail alone, it looks like he's probably going to make use of the higher end equipment from the time, most likely things that the average consumer did not have. But that kind of criticism, I know I've mentioned it before, but it really only applies if you want to do like doing a challenge from the viewpoint of a standard consumer versus someone who had more money to spend on more expensive things. Nowadays, it's typically easier to get the higher end equipment from back in the day, although even that isn't like the best anymore because some things have gone up in price again, mainly because the e-waste that was, well, e-waste back then is now vintage, collector's items, stuff like that. So I guess it really just depends. So Liam Thompson here has 2.1 million subscribers. I don't know anything about this channel, but it does seem like he spends a good amount of time on actually producing the videos themselves. I see that he has one for 1950s technology as well. I think I've seen the thumbnail for this video before, like once, but that's pretty much the extent of what I know. So enough yapping here. Let's do some actually while we watch this video. So he has some modern Apple equipment here.
Someone's at the front doorbell.
Mystery package. What could be inside? Probably something 1980s related.
There's no way.
Alright, so far we're off to a pretty interesting start. Very cinematic intro.
There's no way. Oh my god. Wow.
This little beast is the Motorola Dynatac 8000X.
The classic Motorola here. It would be pretty cool to actually have one of these, but I don't even know if it's possible to even use these anymore. You can't even use the older iPhones anymore because they lack the 4G networking that is the most common nowadays.
AKA the first mobile phone ever. Released in 1983, if you charge this bad boy for 10 hours, you get 30 minutes of call time.
Yeah, battery technology was a lot different back then. I mean, you were lucky to even have portable devices in the first place, but to be fair, if you were using batteries back then, at least the rechargeable ones, it was probably something like NiCads, which, you know, took forever to charge, or there's even the lead acid batteries. Now, those batteries do have certain applications where they're still pretty decent because you can overcharge them as much as you want, but they don't hold nearly as much capacity as lithium-ion batteries.
And that's it. That's the only feature.
Using this phone in 2023 would be completely ridiculous. So naturally, I'm going to do it.
Again, if he actually manages to get it working, that would be pretty impressive.
Also, I'm going to be replacing all of my other technology. Literally all of it.
Actually, he says 1980, not 1980s. Don't worry, that's a joke. It's supposed to be funny. Ah yes, the classic insert video cassette into VCR. No, I'm not going to call it a VHS player. It's a VCR because you can record onto it.
Good morning. Hello. Welcome to the 80s. At least I think it's morning. I don't have a clock or an alarm, so I genuinely have no idea what time it is.
Now the video itself actually looks fairly decent, but so far it does look like it's a genuine camcorder.
My 2020s technology is now locked in a box, including the camera. I'm currently filming on 8mm videotapes.
8mm is awesome. Of course, that went on to high 8 and then digital 8. This format has always been pretty cool to me. I really love these older handycams, and if I remember correctly, the very first Video 8 camcorder was actually from 1985, so halfway through the decade, but it is still 1980s technology. And to be fair, it's a lot easier to use one of these compared to the full-size VHS camcorders,
which is probably going to be really annoying to edit. But that's a problem for future Liam.
So it looks like he's using a Handycam here, USB to composite video outputs. But if you have a digital 8 Handycam with FireWire, that's the way to go, especially when you're capturing 8mm.
Thank God they had breakfast in the 80s. Am I right, guys? Usually at this
Good one.
point, I would read a book, which is very 80s friendly. Except that it's not, because I read on a Kindle. I guess I'll just eat in silence. Not that I read out loud.
I guess things will change once he actually gets something. Then again, maybe he should have gotten it beforehand, but I guess getting the technology is part of the video experience, so I guess it really doesn't matter.
Alright, so next on my typical agenda would be to go for a run. Also very 80s friendly, minus the listening to music situation. But I have a solution.
He's going on a run, probably a Walkman.
Oh, wait, is this? Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Oh, it is. Dude, I used to have the CD version of this as a kid.
This little fella is the Sony Walkman.
Now, if it still works and it hasn't been refurbished, that's pretty impressive because typically with these older Walkmans, not just the Sony ones, pretty much just anything cassette-based, if they have belts, they're going to have to be replaced because a lot of them, if not most of them, have basically disintegrated at this point.
AKA the first portable music device ever. Released in 1979, it's kind of like Spotify. But
Actually, this is not the one from 1979, but honestly, it's just like the iPod. Oh, well, the iPod was from 2001. Yeah, the iPod has been around forever. Same goes for the Walkman.
instead of a music library that looks like this, it looks
Best of the Eagles, Elvis Presley, Eric Clapton. How can you not have the Bee Gees?
like this. So the question is, which tape do I listen to for my entire run? Is it the best of Mozart? Oh, let's
How can he not have the Bee Gees?
go, bro. Wait, is that Queen? Oh, there's some bangers in here. Wait, this is fun. Wait, I'm having a good time. It works. It works really well.
I actually do have a couple of Walkmans. One of them is from like 1990, 1991, somewhere around that. It's a sports model that I changed the belts onto, and somehow it is still one of my most reliable cassette decks.
I can run to this. Okay, let's go.
The other cool part about the Walkman is that you don't really have to worry about the CD skipping because, well, it's a cassette.
Thank God they had showers in the 80s, am I right, guys?
Good
I don't
one.
even know if I can fit this in the frame. No, I can't.
Could it be the Macintosh in the thumbnail? It's the Macintosh, it's gotta be.
My. Dude. Holy crap.
This giant is the Macintosh.
Honestly, the early compact Macs are surprisingly compact. Now, I only have one Macintosh in the compact Mac form factor, and it doesn't work, but the chassis itself is surprisingly small for, like, you have an entire computer with a built-in display.
SE, aka a portable computer. Released in
It also looks like he might have the one with the hard drive, but if I remember correctly, sometimes the HD part also stood for high density, which basically means that the floppy drive will support higher density floppy disks. If you had the SE30, that thing can be upgraded to a crazy amount, especially considering its 1980s tech. It can take up to 128 megabytes of RAM. That computer is from 1989.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have the internet though.
You can actually add networking to it. Obviously, it won't be plug and play with modern internet.
This is going to be very interesting. Extremely interesting, because I spend most of my day at the computer. Not one of these. I'm
A Macintosh is still a Macintosh.
really scared that it's going to blow up. I'm also scared that it's not going to turn on. So are you ready? 3.
If it does power on, and again, it hasn't been like recapped or anything, that's pretty impressive, because especially with the SE30 and the newer models, like around that time period, they have the electrolytic capacitors, which it'll leak all over the board. And the other big problem about these Macintoshes is that if they have the PRAM battery, which basically just stores like the date and time and system settings, if the original ones are still inside the system, it could have destroyed the board by now.
2, 1. Get out of town!
I wish my classic was still working.
Hello and welcome to What's on My Mac 1987 edition. So we have got a trash can down here and Microsoft Word up here. But wait, there's more, because Microsoft Word is actually this weird Finder type thing, and inside of it you've got games. Oh, I can.
Now, the compact Mac has a black and white display, but there's still a lot you can do with a system like this, and Macintosh Garden has a lot of old software for these old systems.
So imagine myself wasting time on this 40 years ago. You've also got drawing, and of course you've got Microsoft Word. Dude, I love this keyboard. Admittedly, wow, that's flattering. Admittedly, I can actually do a lot of my work just typing. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll see you on the other side.
It's actually a very good way to use a Mac like this, because back in the day, the Macintosh was typically used in educational settings, professional settings, like graphic design, stuff like that. And word processing is something that the Macintosh can easily do.
I have just come to the tragic realization that it is now dinner time, and I have not used my phone once.
Now that is wild.
Side note, while this phone does actually still turn on, it runs on an analog network, which means it doesn't work. But fear.
At least he mentions the network situation.
Motorola, flip phone, Velcro.
I'm going to
Genius.
take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to order dinner. Okay, so you have to pay on the website? Okay, no worries. Thank you. Bye-bye. Damn it.
Who needs pizza when you've got microwave rice and beans? Right,
Yay.
guys? No, I'm kidding. This actually is really nice.
I survived. I survived day one, baby. We survived. I mean, you had to watch this camera all day, you feel me? So typically at this point, I would watch a movie on a streaming service.
It is here that I must once again interject. For while I did have a TV and VHS player from the
Going back to the analog era means a good old CRT and good old videotape. Now, when it comes to CRTs, I probably have way more many than I need, but all of them are awesome, all of them are unique.
80s, in one of the great twists of irony,
I'm really scared that it's gonna blow up.
as soon as I put a tape into the player, the TV literally started smoking.
The magic smoke has been released.
I'm not sure if this is a feature of TVs from the 80s, but I decided probably best to turn it off and just go to bed.
Fortunately, none of my TVs have failed in that way, but I'm still cautious when actually using them because you don't want to release that magic smoke.
Well, howdy, partners. So I just made breakfast listening to Bohemian Rhapsody on my Walkman, and I have never felt cooler in my life. Yesterday I realized that there are a few things
He doesn't have a 1980s car, he's not doing the challenge. Said no one.
thought I would be fine without. I'm not going to be fine without. An alarm clock, for example. A paper book. A paper map. You know, I'm in my car, but I don't have the navigation. So, that's fun. Add to that...
Now, I understand that actually getting the equipment is, I guess, part of the video experience. Technically, he could have gotten everything before recording, but whatever.
list, a TV that doesn't smoke. Perhaps a few more VHS tapes. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you ask me, there's only one place I'm going to find all this stuff. Mall Road. What a time to be alive, my friends! I found everything! It did take about 8 hours.
If you look at places like eBay, a lot of times old CRTs will have vintage, rare, retro, and they'll have extremely high, ridiculous price tags.
Tomorrow I can wake up on time, I can read my book, I can watch a movie tonight. It is
I guess not many people really have alarm clocks anymore, but I still have a couple.
actually getting dark, and I'm gonna get a pizza. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.
He got the pizza.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I have just set up the non-fire hazard TV.
Actually, that's not 1980s technology. That's what is that? I think that's actually from like the 2000s, right? Because it's the silver color theme, and that is definitely a way newer VCR. Honestly, at this point, just use whatever works because this stuff is not getting newer.
And VHS player, which means all we have to do is pick a movie. Say less, bro. Please do not blow up on me. I would be grateful eternally.
If you guys want to see my 90s hi-fi audio video setup with the Trinitron, leave a comment down below.
Yo, Loki, why does something smell smoky right now? Am I gaslighting myself? Oh, it works! Oh, it doesn't work! Oh, it works!
It makes me wonder, is he using RF? Or does he actually have composite on the back of the TV? Because if this is one of the later versions where they only had it on the front, then he's using the worst possible video output. But honestly, RF itself, if you have a decent TV with minimal interference, it can provide a good image.
Yes!
Number 17 Cherry Tree Lane, you say? All right, come on with me. This here Cherry Tree Lane.
Trinitron TV Synchro Play. I have not heard about that feature before, but that sounds awesome.
Hey guys, I'm just here to tell you that days 3, 4, and 5.
I think I actually have like one or two tapes where, like fitness, old VHS fitness exercise tapes.
Really boring. I mean, I did leave the house once to get food for my cat, but apart from that, holy crap. Apart from that, I was just, you know, using the technology and eating microwave rice and beans. Holy crap. I can see why they used to do this.
To really get that 1980s feeling, he should have gotten one with wood grain. But then again, an alarm clock is an alarm clock, so...
What is crack-a-lackin', my dudes? This morning, I procrastinated for about 3 hours reading my book, and now I'm further procrastinating reading the computer manual.
Remember when your computer actually had a manual?
To be fair, this is a really good computer manual.
Yeah, they don't make it like they used to.
You know, as far as computer manuals go. I mean, just the pictures alone. They don't make them like they used to, you know what I mean? It's also fascinating to see, like, you know, copy-paste was a foreign concept back then. If they still make computer manuals...
I mean, even the classic Macintoshes, like this one here, had cassettes in the box, and there were even programs instructing you how to use the computer mouse. This was still, you know, top-of-the-line technology for back then. It also had the price tag to match with that.
With this many pictures, I'd probably actually read them. Or at least flick through the pictures.
In general, just old keyboards like that have fantastic key switches.
Thank you so much. Cheers, have a good one. Bro, how cultured am I right now?
Getting your news the old-fashioned way, with paper that actually has the news on it.
Check the vibes. Oh my God. Yeah, I'll be right there, honey. This is actually the first time I've seen the news all week. In fact, it's the first time I've ever bought a newspaper in my life. I'm actually having a good time.
He's actually enjoying the technology. Crazy.
Yep. Okay.
It's so funny to see with the, like, having the actual phone here and then the older one just connected to it.
Alright, well, I'll catch you later then. Bye. Spoiler alert. I wasn't even on the phone just then. I was acting! Acting! Was that good? I felt like that was good. TBA.
Wild.
The only thing I really miss from my smartphone is how you can kind of just, you know, quick draw, random crap, I can't see, torch, I want tickets to a movie, ka-ching, why do bagels have holes in them, Google.
The smartphone itself is a very useful tool when you need it, and it's easy to take it for granted.
Speaking of movies, I'm about to go and see one. And actually, speaking of bagels, I just ate one. So, wow, that was convenient. I suppose I just go up to the kiosk and ask for... What do I say? Hey man, 2 tickets to your next movie, please.
It's such a funny thing because nowadays it's like, oh, you don't have the app? Oh, you just get it on your phone, man.
So, what's showing today? Why do I keep doing an American accent?
Oh, hi there. I'm just wondering if I can get tickets to whatever's playing next. Well, here we are, my friends. Day 7. This morning I was feeling a little introspective. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. I drove all the way out to the forest to go for a run, and it was a lovely run actually, until I slipped over and, you know, got mud on my butt. So,
Actually crazy.
thanks 1980.
Okay, I know that this is the last day, and therefore this is largely unnecessary, but I'm driving home, and... Would it be a sin? Would it be a sin to just... I'm gonna pop some...
Again, the audio, but fantastic montage.
This is...
Oh, sorry, these. Just some books I picked up at the thrift store. No biggie. I mean, they are big, I guess. Didn't really think about it. The complete works of Shakespeare. Probably whack that
Why not?
out in a weekend, you know what I'm saying? And so, as the sun kisses the horizon... Wow, that's a good line. I actually just made that up. Anyway, I thought now would be a good time to give you guys a little something I printed off of my Mac. A really brief review of 1980s technology by a guy from the 2020s. Me. The Motorola Dynatac 8000X. A surprisingly adequate communication device.
Well, it's a phone. It can make phone calls. It would be cool if it still worked like back in the day.
Unfortunately, it pulls my pants down every time I'm not wearing a belt, so probably won't use it again. 4 out of 10. The Sony Walkman. I have literally nothing bad to say about this. It's perfect. I mean, the buttons alone.
Agreed. The Walkman is always going to be something super awesome because you can play your cassette tapes, but on the go.
If you ask me, it's a 10 out of 10. It just is. The Macintosh SE is not particularly functional in the modern world, but I mean, typing's fun. And that one animal game.
I mean, there's a lot of YouTube channels out there trying to get the most out of these old systems, especially Action Retro, where he technically played Minecraft on an SE30. So it is possible to push these machines to their absolute limits. Granted, you do have to upgrade them, but there is still a decent amount you can do with it.
So, 5 out of 10. The TV and VHS player. Assuming it doesn't burn your house down, it's, yeah. 6 out.
I guess that's fair to say considering he didn't have a good experience with it, but every time I've used VHS and a standard CRT, it's always been super fun. And not to mention, if they have a good soundtrack, like the actual audio itself on the tape is in good condition, the audio on video cassette can typically be around CD quality, plus not to mention the crazy PCM technology from back in the 80s where they actually used the video signal of VHS as the digital audio track.
Out of 10.
If I'm not mistaken, I've just stumbled upon a payphone in the wild. A payphone! I didn't even know they still existed!
Now that is crazy.
Maybe it doesn't work. I feel like I have to try.
Wow. Holy crap. This is ancient, dude. Oh my god. It's making a sound. Do I just dial a number? Oh, hi there. I'm just wondering if I could order a pizza for pickup. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, that is actually pretty impressive. A payphone that actually is still connected and it still works.
Cheers, bye-bye. Wow, it worked! Holy crap! Wow, that was awesome! Thanks so much, man. Have a good one. Cheers. The time is 11:30.
I wonder if anyone on the comments of this specific video mentioned about him putting the whole pizza on his bed.
We are a mere 30 minutes away from going back to the future. I am going to thoroughly enjoy this pizza, and by that time we'll probably be done. I'm sad. I don't want to leave the 80s. It's just been like no notifications and pizza. Yes, please.
I gotta say, the editing on this video was pretty good.
I'm gonna pop some tags. Oh my god. McDonald's in my... Hey, Sambo.
Look, I don't even need Google to tell you. It's because without the hole, it's just a bread roll. In a way, it is the hole that defines the bagel. So there's your answer. Probably.
Actually wild. Alright, so initial impressions after watching this. I understand it was more of a cinematic approach, but it did do the job well, and this video has over 3 million views, so I guess it worked in that aspect. But the nice part about it is that he actually acknowledged some limitations. He actually, tried to make use of the technology. I do think that this is actually from a real handy cam, considering it has that more analog quality to it. Now, he didn't really show the Handycam itself except for that one clip where he showed the analog to digital converter setup. Now, this might be like a early 90s Handycam, but again, it's still video 8. Yeah, there's a lot of, oh, but he could have done this, he could have done that. I mean, a lot of the technology from back then was used for years beyond that, such as the CRT, VHS tapes, the videotapes for the camcorder. If this is all that he had access to and that these were the only technologies that worked, that's understandable, because a lot of this tech, if it hasn't been refurbished, yeah, there's not really that much you can do with the broken ones unless you know how to fix them up. I do think this is definitely one of the better ones because, you know, he actually tried the challenge. He wasn't just like, oh, this is old, it doesn't work. He actually used a phone like a phone. He actually used the Macintosh like a Macintosh. There's definitely more that he could have explored, such as, you know, considering he had more high-end technology, he could have had a dedicated hi-fi setup, maybe even a CD player, because CDs were introduced in the 80s, but he made use of what he had and it worked out pretty well. Unless you actually use a ton of old tech on a daily basis and you know everything about them, I'd say that this is perfectly acceptable. So now let's actually take a look at some of the comments here, see what people have to say about this as well. So the very top comment here is like, basically, thanks for the memories, very cool. My first PC had a hard drive capable of holding a whopping 350 megabytes. Actually, you spelled megabytes wrong, said no one ever. 350 megabytes was actually pretty decent for 1991, considering the standard was floppy disks, which held up to 1.44 megabytes. This video is a work of art, made me feel nostalgic for a time when I didn't even exist. The 80s seemed like they were so simple. I mean, you could say that the 2010s were such a simpler time compared to now, but it's always easier to say that when you're looking back. Shed a tear of nostalgia. I used cassettes until 1998, VHS until 2004, so probably DVDs afterwards. First flat screen until 2012. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the analog shutdown was around 2009, 2010. A lot of people still used CRTs up until then. I never stopped using them because I still have some, but obviously most people now have flat screens. Here we actually have some, I guess, criticisms or something. I've actually had some of these comments on my own reaction videos talking about my reaction, so it'll be interesting to see what they say here. So first, having a landline phone would have been more common. Yes, that is correct. Problem is, who has a landline anymore? You could also use a cell phone to landline converter. Those do exist, so you could actually reuse an old landline telephone. The infrastructure just really doesn't exist as much as it used to back then. This video reminded me of how quiet and empty time alone felt back then. The internet is definitely a very good tool, but it does also have its downsides if you are always online. Definite knee slapper, real. You look like a time traveler, this is so great. I guess I am the one time traveling back to the late 2000s, early 2010s with all the e-waste I have. The most incredible thing is, after 30 years or so, those devices still work. Yes and no. I mean, it really just depends on the specific device. I have iOS devices where the batteries have failed, which I have already made a video about, but apart from that, at least just changing the battery, the phone itself still works functionally as an actual iOS device. Going further back in time, analog formats, they can still work, but chances are is that they will probably most likely need some minor maintenance at the very least. Like I mentioned earlier with the cassette decks and the belt drive mechanisms, you'll probably have to replace the belts on that. CRTs are still typically functional, but I guess it also depends on how many hours it has. Honestly, we lived like the 80s right up until the early 2000s, and then the internet started to become more powerful. Yeah, I'd say that's kind of accurate. I guess it really just depends on the type of technology you had back then, but really, as the internet started to become more advanced and more useful, not just like the Wild West of the late 90s, like even just with simple things, a lot of the things that you used to have separately, your smartphone can probably do now and more. You know, I just thought about this. He could have also had like an original Nintendo or some kind of game console from back then. Considering he had the Macintosh and stuff, it wouldn't have been too out of place to have a game console alongside the CRT. At least then he could have played some video games with his pizza. Why do I feel nostalgic about a time I never lived? I mean, it's easy to look at the past, see how simpler it was. I personally never used old macOS like I'm using right now back in the day. Like back when macOS Lion was still a current operating system, I didn't have a Mac. I only had Windows systems, and even then I barely used it. Honestly, the only thing I really used was iOS before it became old iOS. So I guess I have more nostalgia for that. It's just awesome to be able to use them, to use it like back in the day. We're reading YouTube comments on a 2011 operating system and it's working just fine. Being born in 1980, I have some insight. If you had questions in the 80s, the place would usually be the library, pretty accurate, or someone who knew more than you. Pretty much no one had cell phones. Yeah, we already talked about that. 6 p.m., the TV would be on for news. Yes, you could still use that with the old CRTs. You just need a digital to analog converter. One of the few ways to get the weather report. Yeah, you could have also used, the radio, maybe the newspaper if they had something. Everything's streaming nowadays. The closest you can get is just having the physical media itself. This really just depends on the type of camcorder you had. The reason the TV started smoking most likely because of the dust inside of, I guess that really didn't look like dust smoke. I've had some CRTs and computers for that matter, which were completely filled with dust, but they never really started smoking. If anything, they probably had some kind of dust smell as the electronics started to heat up. I still think that this was probably because of bad capacitors. The Macintosh had not been invented when I left college. We used typewriters were still in use. I mean, in the 90s and I guess even the early 2000s, they had electronic typewriters with, I guess it would have been more of a 90s thing, but they had essentially terminal systems that would connect with a typewriter, so you have a digital display, all that nonsense basically. If you had a car phone, that would have been pretty awesome for back in the day. This is amazing. I was born in 2001, but this somehow makes me miss a time I never actually got to see, experience myself. Just by watching you live in the 80s for a whole week feels like those simpler times where people could be easily happier with the small things of everyday ordinary life. I mean, the modern technology that we have now just didn't exist back then. The high-end technology back then was high-end. And I mean, yeah, it's easier to look back and see that it was simpler times, but the 2010s now look like they were simpler times, but there was always things going on. A couple of things from someone who was back there in the day. Firstly, no one had mobile phones in the 80s. Yeah, typically it would have been like everyone on Wall Street probably had one, but again, it's the landline situation. Secondly, no one had a Mac unless they were rich. We all had Commodore 64s. I don't think everyone had a Commodore 64. There were other systems at the time. More people probably had experience with the Apple II. It was still like an Apple computer, but it just wasn't a Macintosh. I have no clue why, but this made me feel immensely sad and want to cry. It made me feel so nostalgic, even though I was born in 2004. Kind of wish we all lived in the 80s when things were more peaceful. No one got canceled. So overall, it seems like a lot of people are really happy with this video, and they generally just have some positive comments to say. The thing about that Mac is that while it's a massive downgrade from the modern PC, it's also a massive upgrade from using a typewriter. Ability to actually edit your work without retyping whole sessions. That is one great use case of the Mac. 80s music was much better than today's music. Are you really going to say that the Bee Gees albums from the 90s are not as good as their 80s or 70s albums? You really going to say that High Civilization from 1991 isn't as good as ESP from 1987? Now that is an intro. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the comments section, because overall, a lot of people were really happy with the video, and honestly, I pretty much said all that there is to say, at least in terms of my opinion. Sure, there were things that he could have improved upon, used other technologies. The biggest downside is that he did not have ESP or even one. Even though I've got all of this modern e-waste here, I guess I'm always kind of experiencing the 80s on a regular basis, because just look at all this awesome wood grain here. It doesn't get more 80s than this. But with that, we're going to end off today's video here. If you enjoyed the reaction and the commentary, then leave a thumbs up. If you want to share your own thoughts about the video itself or my commentary, then leave a comment down below. But with that, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.